All right.
Hello, welcome to the
Hi.
Easy Publish Show 22,
Thank
episode
you.
22, introducing Composer. And today with us is one of the guys behind Composer. It's Jordi Orgiano. I hope I tell it well.
Pretty good.
Okay, thanks. Before we start discussing about Composer and stuff, just a few words. So this is the Easy Publish show. It's a hangout about and intended for Easy community, but we try to cover different topics, not just Easy, which are related to Easy. So it's also Symfony and maybe content management in general, etc., etc. So usually we do this very quickly, and often there is some problems like the internet goes down, or I missed something, etc., etc. So that's why this guy here, the Angry Che, he's here because I can blame him later and I can throw him at some bricks or whatever, and then I feel better. So this is Angry Che. Say hi. Okay. So Angry will watch and probably screw something up. So coming back to the Easy Publish show, while I was considering what to do next from a topic perspective, and then I realized that with Easy Publish as a Symfony full stack application, we inherited a Composer, which is a dependency manager, and it's relatively new, and I'm not quite sure that everybody in the Easy community gets it right. And I thought it would be really, really great topic. And then I invited Jordi, who is, well, I know he's the guy for that, so he was very kind to join us today. And what happened actually was that 2 days ago, Composer got really big kind of call it, how do you call it, kind of a sensation in the well, at least in developers communities, especially the PHP community. With one line of code, we got like 90% improvements, and we did it for Easy Publish on one of our projects, and it was 90%, I think. Some people reported 50, etc. So it really is coincidence that this happened 2 days ago. And one of my first questions to Jordi was I intended to ask him why the hell Composer is so slow. And now I don't have this question anymore because, well, maybe it can still be fast. I mean, faster than this, but in 2 days or in 2 days ago, it got improved by 90%. So I know you had a lot of notifications 2 days ago. So what are your impressions after that, Jordi?
Well, yeah, it was definitely an insane day of like Twitter retweets and people sending me so everyone tried it and sent their kind of report of the profile, saying okay, now it improved by that much, etc. So I spent kind of the entire day just dealing with notifications from here and there. Plus this GitHub, like the commit turned into a massive animated GIF fest, which I think now we're at like 400 something comments on that commit. So it's yeah. But apart from that, maybe more importantly, like we discussed this shortly before, but I think like one important thing to state about this whole thing is that this garbage collector probably should not be disabled in any other project. Like,
it's important to know that this helped in this use case, but you should not disable it in every use case.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because people started discussing this, obviously, like, oh, okay, I should disable it because PHP's garbage collector is awful. No, it's not awful. It's just what we do in Composer is very weird and like, I mean, it's not your typical PHP script, you know, like it's obviously um, like the algorithm, etc., is very doing very specific things, which does create a lot of objects, and so that's the reason. And there's a good post. I don't know if you have show notes afterwards, where we can put a link.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll send you the link afterwards. But there's a good post by Anthony Ferrara, which kind of sums up the whole like the whole topic, just clearly explaining how garbage collection works in PHP and why it actually helped in this case and why you probably shouldn't disable it.
Okay. Well, that was your kind of 5 minutes of fame or something.
Yeah.
So you had some fame before, but this was kind of just like a heroin shock. Okay, just so we don't spend all the whole hangout about that issue, which was not actually what we intended. Coming back a bit, stepping back a bit, can you tell us, what is actually Composer? What's its main task? And in few sentences, so that people that are not or that are not using it for now, or they are maybe using it, but they are just executing one command, so they are not actually know what happens.
So I think, well, so it's a package manager, which I suppose most people are familiar with to some extent. So it, basically you tell it, okay, I want this and this. For example, now in Easy Publish, you will say, well, you don't necessarily, but Easy Publish says it requires Symfony to work because it's based on Symfony now. So when you run Composer install, it will see, okay, your project requires Symfony, and Symfony in turn requires maybe Monolog for logging, etc. Like you have a few libraries that are combined, and so it goes and gets all the levels of dependencies and puts it all in one. Makes sure that everything works together, the right versions, etc., plus your PHP version, and so on, and then it just installs that. That's like the technical description, but I think at the higher level, like if you look at what it does, is also enabling this reuse of code. Like 3 years ago, Easy was not based on Symfony, and now it became possible because it's much easier to embed other things. So it really enables like cooperation and kind of unification of the entire PHP community, and not just a bunch of framework islands and CMSs doing their thing in their corner, which is, I think that's the larger point to remember.
Yeah, definitely. I understand. I mean, there was, I think, the PER or PR thing before Composer. Well, it still exists, of course, but something happened, and I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You probably know better, but then the Composer just kind of exploded, and I mean, most of the frameworks that I know of currently are using Composer and not anything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the main difference with PER was that, well, it's a bit more open, or like you can argue about the details, but it doesn't really matter in the end. But yeah, the good thing is now you can use any library anywhere, pretty much, right? Like very easily, if you know this other library you used in another project, which was not easy, then in your new Easy Publish project, you can say, okay, like, we could use this again because it worked and it did like RSS feeds very well. So why not do it with this library?
Yeah, and how did you came? I mean, how it happened that you are involved now mostly with Composer? Did you start the project, or did you come afterwards, or what's the story?
Yeah, I was working on Symfony mostly until Symfony 2.0 came out. And at that point, we realized we needed something to install plugins and like bundles, as they're called. So yeah, we started work on that, and Niels Aderman, which is the other one, like the other co-lead on Composer, he was, well, he still is, I guess, the lead on PHP-BB. So he had the same issue, kind of needing to install plugins in a sane way, because if you know PHP-BB, it used to be that, well, I think it might still be to some extent, but that you have those like patch files which kind of applied patches to the core of PHP-BB instead of having like clean plugins. So this wasn't very maintainable, and so yeah, we kind of worked together on that, and that's how it began, I guess.
Okay, and okay, I'm not a you know, like a very advanced user. I'm well, 12 years in development, so I did use a lot of tools, and recently through Easy and through Symfony, I'm also using the Composer, and I must admit it really looks very simple, but there are some kind of caveats. So what I think for me was, I think that for most of the beginners or users that start using Composer in some way, the problem is the difference between install and update. Can you maybe say a few words about that?
Yeah. So I would say like update is really saying I want to update the dependencies and update this log file. So there's this composer.log file, which is created whenever you install the first time. So you define a composer.json, you define your dependencies. And once you install or update, like just the first time you kind of update them, it creates this composer.log file. And this describes exactly the state of your dependencies. Like it says, if you require, for example, Symfony 2.6 in any version, if it actually installed Symfony 2.6.1 today, it will say, okay, in the log file you have Symfony 2.6.1. If you do that tomorrow, if you do an update and there's a new version released, it's going to update it to 2.6.2. But if tomorrow you're not doing an update, but you do an install, it will read from your log file and it will see, okay, in the log file it said exactly 2.6.1, so we install this again. The good thing is that you don't get surprises when you deploy it to a server, for example. If some new team member comes in and just installs the project or whatever, they get, like if they're an install, they get exactly what the others have. So it's a way to normalize all the installations of the project. So you really shouldn't use update much. Like install should work everywhere from the log file. It just repeats exactly what happened. And update is only when you really want to get the latest version of some dependency.
But I'm perfectly understanding what you are saying. I already using it. So I finally learned the difference between the install and update. But it's not about the concept. It was more about wording, because it's kind of confusing. The wording is confusing.
I understand that. The problem is, like, there are already many people tried to rename this stuff, and no matter how you rename it, it's never quite clear, because I think the main issue is that it works at two different levels. You have actually the command you run. You say update my dependencies, and that might install packages, it might update packages, it might remove some. But you say update works, like the command name is done at the dependencies as a whole, while then what it actually does is many different operations. And similarly, install, if you run install, it actually might update some packages. If you have an old one installed already, and the log file contains a newer one or a different one, it will do an update to that different version. But it's still installing the dependencies in their consistent state.
Yeah, maybe it would be better to just say, like update dependency and install packages or something like that. But I got you. It's not a difficult thing to solve, and obviously maybe you don't need to solve it. Well, you cannot solve it anymore because it's a lot of people already use it.
Definitely some backwards compatibility issues, but yeah, I think it's something people have to learn. It's just, I understand that it's a bit confusing at first, but I did not see yet a way to name it in a way that would be really more clear objectively. Like it might be subjectively clear because you made your naming and you're happier, but naming things is hard.
Yeah, we know that. So, okay. But Composer by itself would not be, I would not say not usable, but it kind of makes sense with some repositories like packages. So how Composer is related to packages? I mean, did you develop packages, or did it happen that you kind of started to work together, or what's the story there?
Yeah. So. Well, I'll maybe skip on how the project initially developed, but it's a long story and it's not so interesting. But yeah, mostly I'm developing packages and or maintaining it at least. And yes, so it works like it's the default repository for the Composer packages. So when you install something, by default, it will go look on packages.org if it's available or not. Like, then you can add more repositories if you want, but just by default, that's the one you get. So yeah, that's the main open repository. Now I think we have about 45,000 packages. And yeah, like some of them are obviously, Symfony bundles, for example, which are specific to Symfony. Some are like other plugins for this and that frameworks. But there is like majorly, I think, it's just generic PHP libraries, which anyone can use in any framework.
Okay. So just coming back to the performance thing, because this is something that you usually get hit, and especially with the update, because it needs to calculate the dependencies. So it's obviously some heavy mathematics behind it. Can you just touch it a bit? Explain what's the main what's the main reason why it's so slow? Even now with all these improvements, it still takes time.
So how much time do you get, for example?
I think we had on this project, it was I think 130 or 40 seconds, and now we are down under 20 seconds, for example.
Okay. So I mean, I think to me 20 seconds does not matter so much. Like I see your point. Yes, it could be instant, but it's not something that really kills you. But
yeah, but I'm of course, but I still have these nightmares because of because
yes, if you have to wait 2 minutes every time, I agree, but it's not ideal. I think, well, yeah, Easy Publish is a bit of a special case because it's already a large framework, plus it requires Symfony, etc. Like there are many big things required there, and they have many requirements, so it does make the whole thing more complicated. But so why is it so slow? Well, there are two two parts, I would say. Like one is while it, when it says like updating dependencies, then it usually blocks for a while, and that part is mainly CPU time, and that's the part where we gained a lot 2 days ago. But after that, it's mostly bound by network, and that's like downloading the packages, etc. So I mean, this, like, one thing I did is this store on proxy. I don't know if you saw that. That's like a private repository, so you can install that, and it like you can host your private packages on it, and you can also just proxy packages in GitHub. So it helps with the network speed because it's just something you install on a server that you own, and it does like it speeds up network if you have a slow network to GitHub, for example, because it caches everything. So including the Git repositories, etc. So that's one way to fix the the speed issue. If installing is still too slow because you're installing half of the internet, which happens. That's one thing you might consider. And the other issue, like if the resolving the dependencies is too slow, well, I would say it shouldn't matter too much because usually you don't update so often, or like you shouldn't. Your deployment should be installed. Most people, when they get a new log file, they should just run install to get the latest dependencies. Like, I don't know how often you really need to update your dependencies or add a new dependency. It's not so common. So
yeah, maybe during heavy development, you should, there might be some cases when you actually run it several times a day because you are just adding new I need, I don't know, the Guzzle, or how do you say it, or I need the Monologue, or I need this and that, which is not maybe in the application itself. So you just need it, and then you need to install it. And one of the good things, what I noticed is recently we tried to combine two, let's say, more complex things, concretely the Easy Publish CMS and Cilius. And there was an issue because Cilius is a bit more, it has more newer packages from, I don't know, Doctrine or Symfony CMF and stuff like that. And there was one bundle, I think it was CMF routing or something like that. And Cilius required one newer version and Easy required an older version. And then there was this trick of adding, kind of alias thing. Can you explain this a bit?
I can, but it's a bad idea. I mean, yeah, maybe it worked for you and maybe it helped, but so there is a way to essentially tell Composer, okay, install this package, but make it also look like it's this other version. So if two different packages require two versions, you can kind of cheat it and say, okay, like I know this one will work, so just install it and just pretend like it's okay. And yeah, I mean, it's an option, but the thing is, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there was no other option for us, so you needed to do it. So, but it's something that maybe in the next upgrade or so, it will not be needed anymore.
Yeah, I imagine that. Usually, if you need to fix that, I would say do it, and immediately report an issue to like Easy in this case, saying, hey, can you please allow like newer versions in the requirements because it's blocking us. And
yeah, we did that.
If they don't allow it for a good reason, then
there is a good reason.
But in that case, it's probably going to fail if you actually force it. So.
Okay. Do you have any improvements in the pipeline? What's coming next with Composer, or you usually just maintain it, fixing bugs and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there is a, I guess there is a bunch of small things that are coming and should come. It's always a matter of free time, right?
Yes.
That's also the reason I worked on this torrent proxy was because I'm selling that actually, so I hope to get more like kind of paid time with this to work on the open source stuff. But yeah, it's still like very hard to
find time. Yeah.
But there's a bunch of pull requests which are opened and which should get reviewed, etc. And so like there's tons of little things which can be improved on. But I think at this point it's working well enough. Let's say that for most people in most days it's okay. It's doing the job, and yeah, there's not many emergencies anymore. When there's a bug, it's usually a bug affecting like 2 people in some weird edge case, and not a huge crisis. So.
Okay. I mean, well, I doubt we will have again such a day when somebody will say, "Okay, I just made Composer performant 90%."
Yeah.
That would be excellent, but looks a bit too much, too far-fetched.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, just to mention for the Easy community that the Composer is not just I think from the version 5.3, which was released half a year ago. Composer is not only used for the new stuff, for the Symfony and Easy 5 and bundles, etc. It's also used for the legacy extensions. So we now have one way of actually, making all packages, etc., installing and updating. So that's quite good, because previously there was some kind of a legacy way of how you would get packages in Easy, and that's now integrated, and Composer is used for that, and that's, I mean, it's a good thing, because we will still have some legacy extensions for a year or 2 or 3, and it really helps if you have one tool and not 2 for the same thing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some kind of final words? What do you? I mean, do you? You're obviously a open source developer, so you like to share things, etc. Are you happy with that? I mean, is this something that you see yourself in that in the future?
Well, happy, let's say yes. Usually it's, I mean, I'm mostly doing it because I like it, I guess. Some days I do it because I just feel responsible, but mostly it's because I like it. But it takes an enormous amount of time and energy, and that's the one problem I see, that like I don't know how to make this work long term. Like I'm still looking for the good solution there, with having enough money and enough fun open source, and like you have to balance all these things. And
yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying, but do you need like a fellow maintainer?
Yeah, I mean, that's always an option to help, but I see it also that like it's a difficult thing to find someone that has enough like overview over the entire project, because it's not like a framework that you use every day and you're comfortable with it and you care about it. It's more like this tool that you just run, and if it doesn't work, you fix it, send a pull request, done. But not so many people hanging around. Like there are some that do help and look at the issues, etc., and that's really nice. But most people, they just come, they send a pull request, and they never show up again, because
yeah, you solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's hard to find someone that's actually I would have the time and the knowledge, etc., to really help at that level. But maybe, like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll get really sick of it and I'll just find someone.
Yeah, well, this is well, that was my intention to close with this, let's say, message to people is to, hey, come on, we need some help here for Jordi, and I mean it's a quite important tool. So if you go berserk or something and you you could like really influence a lot of projects and products in a bad way. That's why we need more of you. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for joining and having
thank you.
half an hour for us. Yeah. Half an hour of chit chat with us and joining the show. And seems that we didn't have a broken internet connection today, so I will not throw him at some, brick or something. Thanks again, and see you soon. Bye bye.
Right, bye bye.